Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel where today we're going to be going through my Week 16 NFL Power Rankings. Got a few more of these to go before we hit the playoffs, and there is a lot to get through after this past week of football. A lot of teams hanging out in that 8-6, 7-7, 6-8 range, all fighting for the wild card spots. Some teams are really pulling ahead of the pack, and some others are falling way down below. Before we get started, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more. And let's go and get started with the Arizona Cardinals, who got absolutely destroyed by the 49ers. As pretty much we all expected, that defense was not able to stop that monster of a team in San Francisco. There are some instances where Kyler Murray looked decent, but not too much there. I mean, they're pretty much tanking for a Marvin Harrison Jr. or potentially even a Drake May type quarterback. Be interesting to see what they do with Kyler Murray as well, if they decide to go quarterback or support Kyler there. Next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons, who, just because you lost to the Panthers, the worst team in football, you're in bad tier. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. If you lose to the Panthers, you are in bad this week. You have not looked right these past 3 games. You've lost control of the division to a very, very good Buccaneers team recently. And Arthur Smith, he is definitely on the hot seat. This offense has talent, but the way he's using that talent is not that great. And you had control of your destiny, and you absolutely blew it. So you're in bad tier. Next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens, who are in Super Bowl contending tier. They're my number 2 team this week. They beat the Jaguars pretty convincingly. Defense was able to absolutely smother Trevor Lawrence there. Offense did pretty much enough to survive. You're doing very, very good, and I think you will be okay in the future here. You got a big test this week, though. Let's see. Who do you play? Just double checking real quick, because I know you got. Oh boy, your next 2 games are going to be very, very fun. You play the 49ers, and then you play the Dolphins, so those are going to be very, very good games, very close games as well, but I think you can definitely hang with them. So, Baltimore in Super Bowl. Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills, one of 4 teams that are 8-6 in the AFC, fighting for the final 2 wildcard spots. And I'm going to put all those 8-6 teams in wildcard tier just because I think they're all very much deserving of it. And all are playing very, very good football right now, but only 2 of them can get it. So, Buffalo, you're up here in wildcard. You absolutely destroyed the Cowboys with your running game for once. Josh Allen did not have to do everything himself. You guys have been playing very, very good football recently. No one wants to face you. If you can get into the playoffs, which I definitely think you can, you're going to be a very, very scary team. Carolina, congrats on your second win. It was more on the Falcons being absolutely bad than what you were doing yourself, but hey, you will take any sign of hope this year, as you basically have punted this season, and you're punting the offseason because you don't have your first round pick, which is number 1 overall right now, which is very, very bad. So you're down there and tanking. Chicago, still in bad tier. Another blown lead for you guys. That's 2 more wins you should have had this year. One against the Lions, where you blew a 14-point lead with 2 minutes left, and now you blew a 10-point lead to the Browns. Almost was able to win on a Hail Mary attempt, which actually almost got completed by Justin Fields to Darnell Mooney. Mooney bobbled it and it ended up intercepted, which absolutely sucks there for you guys. But again, I keep saying this, you have a very, very interesting question, because Justin Fields has actually been playing pretty good these past few weeks. And he got the number 1 overall pick because of what the Panthers are doing. So, what do? Stick with Fields? Trade the number 1 overall pick? Trade Fields? Draft Caleb Williams? I don't know. It is a very interesting dilemma you have, and it should be a very fun offseason for you as well. Next 3 weeks is all about seeing what Justin can do. If he does good, you think about it. Okay. Next up is Cincinnati, who just keep winning with Jake Browning. I thought this team was dead. Like, seriously thought this team was dead, but yet they keep winning games. They beat the Vikings in overtime, another playoff caliber team, and currently sitting at the 6th seed in the playoffs. You're scheduled for the next couple games. You play the Steelers, which is winnable. The Chiefs, which would be very, very interesting because of how the Chiefs are struggling. And then he played the Browns, who also are playing a backup quarterback. And so you very much well could make the playoffs. Even though you're currently 60, I think Buffalo is a better team than you. But the fact that you're even in this position after losing Joe Burrow, I thought you guys were done for the year, but yet you are here making things very, very interesting there. Next up, we got the Cleveland Browns, who are going to be one of the top teams in the wild card tier. Good come from behind victory against Chicago after being down and looking bad so early. You got another win, currently 9-5. You guys should make the playoffs, barring any unforeseen circumstances. You play the Texans next week. That's a very, very big game. But then you end with the Jets, who you should be able to beat. And then you play the Bengals. So you need to win 2 of the next 3. That's what you definitely need to do. You definitely can do that, but that Texas game is going to be very, very interesting. So right now in wildcard tier, but just keep an eye out. You can't be too comfortable yet. Dallas. After that pretty embarrassing loss, I'm putting you in division tier. Just kind of scares me that you lost that badly to the Bills, another solid playoff team that you should be able to be more competitive against. If it was a close loss, I'll still keep you in Super Bowl contending tier. But if you're blown out that bad, you drop down the division. I still think you guys could make a deep run, but again, this just brings up the question: is Dallas legit? Are they fine? Are they good? Or are they frauds? Can they beat good teams? And so far, they really only beat the Eagles, and we've seen the Eagles really struggle these past few weeks. So, be interesting to see what you do, Dallas. Next up, we got Denver, who is in mid-tier after being absolutely blown up by the Lions. Currently 7-7, the 11th seed, but only a game back at the wild card spot. Again, another team that's just kind of there in the mix right now. But your schedule is very, very favorable to potentially make a run here. You got the Patriots, the Chargers, and the Raiders all in your last 3 games. Those are 3 very winnable games. Could end up being 10-7 and competing for a wild card spot. But you have to play perfect. Russ has to play a little bit better. Defense cannot give up 42 points again. But I think against the Lions, which is a one-off for how mad the Lions have been recently. So I think it'd be fine. But right now you're in mid on the outside looking in, but can easily make a run. Detroit, up here in division tier. Really good performance against Denver. Was really a good get-right game for you there. So Detroit, I think, will be fine in terms of their remaining schedule. They got the Vikings twice, and then the Cowboys. So going against 3 straight playoff caliber teams, you really show, will they be a true contender, or will they be kind of a mid-playoff team? That is the question we're going to get answered here very, very soon. Another team here, I'm putting them in bad, even though their schedule record says it should be mid, is the Green Bay Packers. They made Baker Mayfield look like prime Drew Brees, prime Peyton Manning with a perfect passer rating against that terrible, terrible defense. I'm not going to get too much into it as I kind of ranted about it in my video yesterday about my Week 15 reaction to that game. But the Packers definitely are in trouble with that defense. And I really do think Joe Barry should have been fired after that game, personally. But I will say Jordan Love has been looking better. He's been looking good. The young receivers are looking good. There's still bright spots on this team. But now they're kind of being the team we thought they would be this whole year. It just really sucks after that stretch of games against the good teams, the Lions and Chiefs, to blow it in back-to-back weeks. Get better, Green Bay. Just get better. Next up is the Houston Texans, who stay in wildcard tier even without C.J. Stroud after an overtime win over the Titans. And I gotta say, that's really impressive. They were able to pull that comeback off against Tennessee with Case Keenum at the quarterback position. And all of a sudden, there's a very interesting mix in the AFC South. Indianapolis is also going up here in this wildcard tier as well. I'll kind of talk about them all at once. Because the Texans have the Browns, which could be a game they could win or lose, depending on if C.J. Stroud is healthy. And then they play the Titans, and then they play the Colts, which could be for the division title with how Jacksonville has been playing. So, Houston, definitely way better than anyone thought this year. The fact that even competing for a division title is impressive. C.J. Stroud looks like the guy. This defense under DeMeco Ryans has been playing fantastic football. And so, Houston, is a problem for the league right now. So good on them. And then for the Colts, currently sitting at the 7th seed in the playoffs after beating the Steelers up really, really bad. They actually have a pretty favorable schedule. They play the Falcons next week, and the Falcons, as we know, have been struggling. The Raiders have been not that great either, even though they absolutely destroyed the Chargers. And then they play the Texans, like I said earlier, for a potential division title. It's just very impressive. Shane Steichen should definitely get votes for Coach of the Year. Him and DeMeco Ryans, I think, should be the favorites. Just because they took these two teams that should not be anywhere near the playoffs and have them be in the playoff contention down the stretch. And especially since Shane Steichen lost his dynamic rookie quarterback early on, he's been doing this with Gardner Minshew. And Gardner Minshew is a good quarterback, but not a guy you expect to lead a team to the playoffs. They're running the ball well. Minshew's doing enough, and they got good defense, and they're playing very, very good football. A team that's still in division tier kind of by default because they're currently leading the AFC South is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And alarm bells are ringing in Duval because they have lost, I believe, 3 straight games. Lost to the Bengals against Jake Browning. Then they lost to the Browns, and they got steamrolled by the Ravens. They're in danger of missing the playoffs with how tight this AFC is. That is just a fact. And their schedule, next week they play the Buccaneers, who are red hot. That could definitely easily be a loss. Then they play the Panthers and the Titans. Those 2 games are more easily winnable. So they still could make the playoffs, still could win the division. I would expect them to win the division just because they have tiebreakers over the Colts and split against the Texans. But it's rough. It is rough right now in Jacksonville because of how bad they are looking. So there's that there. Staying in division tier, I'm keeping the Chiefs there because they didn't look that great against the Patriots. They still won the game, only by 10 though, when I think they should have won by more. Mahomes was kind of sloppy. Had 1 interception that was his fault. 1 was because Kadarius Toney is an idiot and terrible. But Kansas City looking very suspect right now. Still the 2 seed in the playoffs. They got the Raiders this week, which could be interesting if the Raiders that showed up on Thursday Night Football show up. And they played the Bengals against Jake Browning, which could be interesting as well. And they played the Chargers, which should not be a problem. So they should be fine ending the year, but they're definitely not a Super Bowl contender in my eyes. I think the offense is too inconsistent to really contend. So there's that there. The Chargers, I'm putting you in tanking tier because you let 63 points be put up on you. No questions about it. You're down there in tanking. Shut up. You gave us 63 points to the Raiders. So, tanking tier for now. Next up, we have the LA Rams, who are currently sitting at the 7th seed in the NFC, playing some really, really good football of late. They beat up on the Commanders really, really good there. 28-20 victory. So, good for you there. But their schedule looks really, really rough. They got a tough game against the Saints, which got a big wild card implications for both teams there. Then they play the Giants, who could be feisty. And then they play the 49ers, who could still be fighting for seeding there and play the starters. But LA currently having a pretty good season. They're showing why they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. They still got some talent there. Stafford's been playing well. So LA in wild card tier. A team I'm putting in mid, even though the record is the same as some teams in bad, is the Raiders. Anytime you score 63 points, you deserve to go up a tier. Really don't care. They're probably not going to make the playoffs because they're about 2 games back. But they've been playing some good football. They play the Chiefs this week, so it'll be very interesting to see how they do there. Then they play the Colts and the Broncos. They could be pretty much a spoiler for a team or two. And they definitely look like they're right in the ship after firing Josh McDaniels. They look a lot better, to be honest. So good for you there. Good job there. Next was the Dolphins, putting them in Super Bowl contender because their offense has definitely been clicking. And they rested Tyreek Hill, which is good. They beat up on the Jets. It'll be very interesting because they're definitely in the fight for the number 1 seed and 2. But they have a tough schedule remaining. No, I'm looking at the wrong schedule. Miami. They play the Cowboys this week, which is going to be very interesting for both teams. Should really tell us a lot about both teams. Then they play the Ravens, and then they play the Bills. That schedule is rough. And they could easily fall to a wild card tier if they don't perform well in those 3 games. But right now, I still have them as a good team. They got shut out the Jets, so good job there. Another team in the wild card tier is the Minnesota Vikings, sitting at 7-7 at the 6th seed. Lost to Jake Browning and the Bengals. They got 3 key games coming up. 2 against the Lions, 1 against the Packers. Make or break time for Minnesota right now. There's a lot of teams trying to nip at that last spot in the NFC. With them, the Rams, the Saints, the Seahawks, and the Packers are still there in the background. So you got tough work ahead of you, Minnesota. Another team in tanking, Patriots. I'm actually going to put you above the Cardinals because you put a pretty good fight against the Chiefs. Not really much else to say there. You're kind of going to be kind of scrappy and be in games for a bit, but not really too much to say there. Still in tanking. Another team in mid, I got the New Orleans Saints. Currently sitting at 7-7. Basically down to tiebreakers against the other teams in the race. They got 2 really big games back to back. They played the Rams this week, and then they played the Buccaneers, which could be for the division in the NFC South. So these 2 weeks are going to be very, very key for them. They're able to defense is playing pretty well these past 2 weeks. Held the Panthers and Giants to 6 points each. Granted, not great competition, but they have been doing better. So good job there. Next up is the Giants, who I'm still putting in bad tier, mainly because I still think they're kind of a competent football team. Sitting at 5-9, not the worst team in the league right now. So they're definitely not the worst team in New York because that goes to New York Jets. I'm putting them in the tanking tier, even though they have the same record as the Giants, just because they got shut out. That's really the only reason why. The defense hasn't been doing its best, but the offense is just wolf, man. It is rough there. So Jets in tanking. Eagles, top in wild card for now, but that could very easily change because, time to panic with the Eagles. They did clinch a playoff spot, but these past few games have been rough. They barely squeaked by against the Chiefs. They barely squeaked by against the Bills. Got blown out by the 49ers, blown out by the Cowboys, and they lost to the Seahawks. The good news is that their next 3 games are very, very winnable, with 2 against the Giants and playing against the Cardinals. Should be an opportunity for them to get right for the playoffs. But I don't know if they'll make it far just because they have not really instilled a lot of confidence. Going at the bottom of mid is the Steelers. They're 7-7, lost 3 straight games. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. Probably going to be below 500. Let's look at their schedule here real quick. Steelers. They have 3 games left against the Bengals, Seahawks, and Ravens. Yeah, they're finishing below 500 and missing the playoffs. Right? The only reason they're in the mid is because they're at 500. I also said being bad for now, so there's that. Going on the top end of mid, Seattle. Very impressive win here for you guys against the Eagles. You've been playing. This was supposed to be a death run for you. You still lost 3 out of 4, but most of those games you're competitive. Granted, the 49ers you lost by a good amount, but everyone loses to the 49ers by a good amount. They barely lost to the Cowboys in a high-flying shootout. They beat the Eagles. And their next 3 games are very winnable for them. They played the Titans this week. Then they are home against Seattle, against Pittsburgh, and then they're at Arizona. So Seattle could very easily sneak into this wild card spot with a very competitive team. So good on you, Seattle. Doing a lot better than I thought you would. And no doubts about it, number 1 team in all of football, San Francisco. They're my favorite to win a Super Bowl. The way this offense is running, Purdy's playing really, really well. Got great weapons. Defense is balling out. I don't think there's any reason why this team should not be the favorite to win the Super Bowl. They're just very, very, very dang good. And that's a fact. Next up, Tampa Bay. Though even though they're 7-7, I'm putting them above Jacksonville this week because I have more confidence in this Buccaneers team than I do in the Jaguars. Because these past few weeks, they play some really solid football there. Currently 7-7. They lost by 14 to the 49ers. Lost by 7 to the Colts. They beat the Panthers. Then they beat the Falcons to take the division lead. They stomped the Packers. They then played the Jaguars this week. Very, very winnable for them. Then they played the Saints. And they played the Panthers. I think this team could be very sneaky, especially if they play the Eagles or Cowboys. they can win that game very easily. And so Tampa Bay is doing a lot better than expected. Baker Mayfield is doing a lot better than expected. Completely destroyed my Packers, so always happy there. Titans, putting you in bad for now because even though you eliminate for the playoffs, you're a very, very feisty team. You play tough, play competitive. Really is all about seeing how Will Levis does these next few weeks. Hopefully his injury is not bad, but good for you there. And Washington, you're a bad team. Don't even want to talk about you right now. You're very, very bland and stupid and boring. So, yeah, that's my tier list for this week. Super Bowl tier, we got San Francisco, Baltimore, Miami. Division, we got Dallas, Kansas City, Detroit, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville. Wild card, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Buffalo, Houston, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Minnesota, Los Angeles Rams. Mid, Seattle, Denver, Las Vegas, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, bad, Green Bay, Atlanta, Chicago, New York Giants, Tennessee, and tanking, I got the New York Jets, Los Angeles Chargers, Washington, New England, Arizona, and Carolina. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll be back here very, very soon.